From KPRC 2, this is Houston Newsmakers with Cambrell Marshall.
And good morning and welcome to Houston Newsmakers, where I'm joined this morning by former Houston City Council member Amanda Edwards, who is now an announced candidate for mayor of the city of Houston. Good morning to you.
Good morning, Cambrell.
It's been too long.
It's been far too long.
Yeah, but you got to run for office to get on this program.
Well, here I am running for office,
I know.
so here you have it.
Back in May, when we were talking about this before we started recording, it's really early. Back in May, you made the announcement.
March.
Was it March?
22.
Okay, so I'm late. Okay.
It's okay.
So, why, number one, why so early, and just why are you deciding to run for mayor?
Cambrell, we are at a juncture in our city where I really believe that we can make a choice. We can either choose to go backward or we can move forward. And I'm excited about the prospect of leading our city to be a place where everybody has an opportunity to thrive, as well as being the type of leader that can tackle and all of the challenges that we're facing.
What do you mean when you say going backwards?
Yeah, so we've got some major challenges in the city. So I'll kind of give you some of that insight. So I served as an at-large city council member, as you know, and prior to that served as a municipal finance attorney. Our city finances are in peril right now. Particularly, they will be as soon as some of those ARPA funds run out. So we really want to have a mayor who has the experience that can tackle some of these complicated challenges. We have issues with crime. We have issues with flooding. We're in hurricane season as we speak. And so we've got a number of challenges in our city that experience will be critical in order to address.
You said ARPA funds, really, for the viewers who don't know what that is, to explain.
Yeah, so we had some federal support that was temporary in nature, associated with COVID and the pandemic, that was made available to cities and localities, and those funds will be running out. So there's a lot of temporary sources of funds, but long-term obligations that the city has to pay. And so you really want to make sure that we figure out how to structurally balance our budget in a way that allows us to give people the quality of life they're looking for in Houston.
You have some ideas that you have that aren't being done at this point?
Oh, there are a number of things, because as soon as those funds run out, for example, there have been increases in pay raises for a number of municipal workers, firefighters, police. You're going to have to find sustained sources of revenue to support those increases. You're also going to need to make sure that we have enough law enforcement officers to address the crime issue that we have in our 650 square miles of our city, which is also a financial obligation. So there's a lot of looming challenges ahead that you really want to have strong, sound, measured, experienced leadership to address.
As we pause this week to look back on Hurricane Harvey and the devastation it caused, and remember it was only five years ago, and it seems like it was a lot longer than that in some cases. You've pointed to that storm and its impact as one of the reasons why you've decided to run. As a native Houstonian, you've seen your share of storms in this area. Why is that an early focal point of your campaign as well?
Absolutely. 51 inches of rainfall, $125 billion in damage overall caused by Harvey. And still, 5 years later, there are so many of our most vulnerable residents that still are in need. Right after Harvey, I had an opportunity to go just impromptu check on some of our lower income seniors. And I learned by knocking on those doors, asking them what they would do to remove their furniture and all of the things, that they weren't removing the walls from their homes, the sheetrock that had been soiled by the floodwater. So I mobilized hundreds of volunteers to go out, particularly in areas where there were high concentrations of lower income seniors, to bring the help to them. So we would knock on those doors. And Cambrell, one of the things that was so striking to me when I'd knock on those doors is that first they'd be startled to see me and they said, well, what are you doing here? And of course, this was the second worst disaster in U.S. history. But what would follow was startling. They'd say, the next question they'd ask was, are you up for re-election already? And I just remember how striking that was to hear that in the face of the second worst disaster in U.S. history, the first thing that would come to mind when you see an elected official standing on your doorstep is that somebody must need something from me, like a vote, rather than to be there to deposit into my life. And that is dysfunction. It's a dysfunction of our democracy where people aren't seeing it work for them. So I carry that story with me. I carry the odor of mildew and mold with me in terms of knowing what those houses are like. have been like on this journey, and want to make sure that not only do we have plans in place to make sure that some of our community moves forward, we want to make sure that everybody in our community moves forward, and our policies and our actions must reflect that.
Did you set up a nonprofit between
Yes.
them since you were in your spare time? So you don't have enough time.
We were talking about all that spare time earlier, right?
You were able to go ahead and do that. What was it that motivated you to do that? Because you could have just, okay, go back to the law and do practice and that sort of thing, but you started doing those kinds of things.
Canberell, this is a mission for me in terms of service. This is not just within the confines of an elected office. And so when you go in those homes, for example, and people are really looking for help and feel like they've been cast aside, feel as though they've been forgotten, are overwhelmed by the difficulty through which it takes, the difficulty that they have in trying to traverse what help remains available to them. You can't forget about those stories just because you're not in public office. You've got to find channels, ways that you can continue to assist. One of the homes that I ended up helping with in more recent times was a gentleman who was 85 years old, had Harvey damage, didn't get any help for it. Then Uri happened, lost the running water in the home because of plumbing issues. We sent plumbers out to go check on him. They came back to me and said, "You cannot send him back in this home." And I said, "Well, why not?" They showed me the images of the ceilings that had caved in all over his home. He had been living in a corner of his house with buckets to catch water that he would flush down the toilets prior to that. And that is an 85-year-old in our city of Houston, which I could not stand for. So we got to work, and I remember him saying to me, "I just want someplace safe to live before I die." And we were able to do that. We were able to finish his home before he passed, but he did pass shortly thereafter. So there are many residents in our city that aren't necessarily raising their hands and asking for help or coming to us. It's imperative that we have leadership in place that recognizes that you must meet the people where they are.
Sorry, my phone interrupted you there. I apologize.
That's okay.
For that. So I've got a lot more I want to talk to you about.
Sure.
And you'll stick around and answer a few more questions.
Of course.
Houston Newsmakers Extra, because we got more to talk about. You get people who are in the race, well-known people whose name recognition, and they have a lot of money. We'll talk about your challenges there and what makes you better qualified than they are, and ask you how Mayor Turner's doing and how you might have done things differently. Newsmakers Extra on click2houston.com. So we'll do that coming up, okay?
Thank you
so much.
Cameron.